I'm Alan Kenny, Managing Editor with REIT.com, and I'm in San Diego at REIT World 2012, NAREIT's annual convention. Joining me is Josh Olazabal, Vice President and Credit Analyst with PIMCO. Josh, how would you assess REIT's performance during the financial crisis and downturn?
You know, at PIMCO, we talk about REITs having been resilient, is the word we use to describe performance. You know, I think we and others felt that the REIT model conceptually made a lot of sense and would perform well. But at the same time, the model had never necessarily been stressed. And I think what we saw, you know, during the downturn in 2008, 2009, is the model was actually stressed by one of the worst downturns, you know, we're likely to see. And, you know, it proved remarkably resilient during that period.
You mentioned the word resiliency quite a few times there. So what is it about REITs that makes them so resilient?
So at PIMCO, we talk about the REIT model, and we talk about a number of things that together create something that is resilient. So when I talk about the model, I talk about the covenant package. You know, REIT bonds typically come with a covenant package that limits debt incurrence. That essentially limits the amount of total debt a REIT can have, secured debt a REIT can have. And, you know, during the downturn, we saw that those limitations on debt basically kept the companies from going overboard and, you know, essentially ensured that they would be viable through the downturn. So that's one of the first elements we talk about. We also talk about the fact that REITs typically own high quality properties compared to the standard real estate in a given market. You know, a REIT will typically own higher end properties. So that's another element. And we also talk about the fact that longer term leases essentially, you know, keep the REIT at any given time from feeling the brunt of a downturn. The amount of NOI that's exposed at any given time is less than otherwise would be the case.
And do you think that the investment market as a whole kind of has an understanding or appreciation of those attributes?
You know, we internally talk about the fact that people have really started to see that coming out of the downturn. I think, you know, on the fixed income side, you look at before 2008, 2009, a very narrow universe of REIT bond buyers. And I think, you know, as is the case with PIMCO and some of our peer firms, you've seen that expanding over the last couple of years as people have become more and more convinced that the model itself works.
I want to ask too, looking ahead 2013, what's going to be the big story in the REIT industry?
Well, you know, I think from our perspective on the financial side, it'll continue to be what we've seen in 2012, which is REIT management teams looking to take advantage of a very good rate environment, a very good spread environment where REIT bond spreads have tightened considerably, you know, relative to treasuries. And I think, you know, even our conversations here at NAREIT, you know, prudent management teams are saying, hey, let's go ahead, let's lock in that financing at attractive terms, let's term out some maturities. And it's a continuation of what we've seen coming out of the downturn, which is a very prudent approach to risk management and maturity management. I think you've seen unsecured bonds starting to look better against unsecured term loans, and I think you'll see people taking advantage of that through the coming year.
All right, well, Josh, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And for more on this and other REIT news and analysis, be sure to check out REIT.com.